Hi guys, on today's Lunchbox I have Yann Martel, the author of Life of Pi. Let's see what he has to say about what he's up to and what's happening with his book.
I'm Yann Martel on Sharad's Lunchbox. Thrilled to see Life of Pi bought by a major studio and then turned into a movie. Not only because it brought attention to the book, and that's flattering, a writer always likes to have readers for his or her books, but also because I love cinema. I grew up watching movies, and it speaks a very different language than the language of novels, and so the novel has to be carefully translated to the language of the screen. But that can be done, and there are great movies that have been based on books, so it was a thrill. It was also a thrill to be able to meet people like Ang Lee, like Taboo. I didn't get to meet Sharad Khare, but maybe one of these days I will. It was all a thrill, and it's also a thrill because it was easy for me in the sense I've written the book, now this is someone else's project. So it is based on my book, but they're doing all the hard work, and I just get to see it being made and see the result.
And so each of my books has been a way to understand something that interested me. So my very first book, which was a collection of short stories, I was interested in looking at what stories could do. What can a story mean to someone? What are stories for?
So in a sense, Life of Pi, which starts in India, takes place in the Pacific, ends up in Mexico, and in small elements takes place in Canada, is in fact a typically Canadian novel. I'm a slow writer. I have one idea and I work on it for a number of years, so Life of Pi took me about 4.5 years, which isn't particularly long, but if you consider that's all I did that full time. I didn't have another job. At the time I didn't have a family. So I did research for about 2 years, 2.5 years, and then the actual writing process of the novel was roughly 2 years. And I loved it. I wasn't distracted by anything. I lived like a prince. I lived on no money. I lived in Montreal with roommates, no car, I didn't smoke, I don't drink. I lived on nothing. But to me I lived like a prince because I was living this wonderful life of the mind, where every morning I'd wake up and my only concern were these characters, principally this boy and this tiger. And they were my only concern. And to live that kind of an imaginative life was a thrill. It really was a thrill. At 4.5 years I loved working on this book. I was sorry to see it finish. And I loved the whole process afterwards. I didn't expect it to be such a big hit. I thought it's a book that talks about religion, it's a book that talks about zoos, it defends both. It posits that both are serious enterprises. And if you think of it, most novel readers, I would guess, are secular zoo haters. They don't care much for religion, and they think zoos are terrible cages for animals. So to have a novel that takes on both of those seriously, I thought was for sure dooming it to failure. So it was a pleasure to see that so many readers discovered it, read it with pleasure. And it didn't, the success was slow. It started quite slowly in Canada. It was shortlisted for the Governor General's Award, but it didn't win. And then it came out in the US and the UK, and then the success started taking off. And then just kept on getting better. So it's been a thrill that I've been grateful for since right from the start. When I go traveling abroad, in a sense I recognize Canada because so many nations live in Canada, and when I'm in Canada I recognize the world. And so that diversity that we have here in this country means that a lot of voices can be heard. Now it's still a struggle, we don't tolerate mediocrity. So from whatever community you come from, you have to be good. But once you are good, once you have a story to tell, I think there's a greater willingness to hear it here. Well, it is about interpretation. The book is one set of facts atop of which there are two stories, one with animals, one without. And the reader is invited to decide what actually takes place. So it is a novel about an act of faith. Because life is not just about the facts, it's about how we interpret those facts, and there is liberty in interpreting those. Nothing is just about the facts, it's about how you interpret them. So in that sense we co-create our reality. And to me that's what Life of Pi is about. So it is very much a novel that is open to interpretation. I think in a sense that's its strength.
That's amazing.
Well, I published another novel since called Beatrice and Virgil, and I'm hard at work on another novel now, once again featuring animals. This time a chimpanzee, also actually 3 chimpanzees and a rhinoceros. So once again I'm using animals to speak about a human reality. It'll be very different from Life of Pi, just as Beatrice and Virgil was very different from Life of Pi. I just like using the metaphor of the animal to explore the human condition. Now I found that every book is a new challenge, presenting, it's its set of doubts and discoveries, and the previous book is totally irrelevant. And Life of Pi was very cinematic, you know, the descriptions, it was a very cinematic story. Beach and Virgil wasn't, the next one might possibly be. But no, you close the door on all that outer noise and you just get to work on it, and the novel tells you what it needs, and the past is the past and I forget it. You know what? My most important legacy would probably be how I raise my children. You know, because that'll have a greater effect on the world, likely, than any book I've written. In a secondary way, maybe some of my books. You know, hopefully Life of Pi will have the legacy of openness, of tolerance, of... You know, the problem with religion is it's afflicted by people who think about it literally. Both fundamentalists who, let's say, take the Bible literally, but also people who reject the Bible on literal grounds. So hopefully it's a novel that will open people's mind to say, hey, you need a lighter touch. You need a lighter touch. That would be a pleasing one. Other than that, you know, I'm not too concerned about my legacy. I'm very much one who lives in the moment. Right now I'm enjoying my children, and I'm loving my next book, and that's all of my life.